by the way, over here, I don't know if you know this, just get in the weeds here for a second, but now at McDonald's, I heard this on the news today. If you go get a vaccine, they'll give you a free something on their menu. What does that say about our society? That like you wouldn't get a vaccine yesterday, but because there's a Big Mac now involved in it, you'll get the vaccine.
I'll get the
What
shot
does that
now.
say about us?
Yeah.
What does that say?
We
Anyways,
love our Big Macs.
I digress. It's like, God damn, but that is a $2 Big Mac, man. All right, give me that shot or whatever the hell's in that thing.
It's got 2 beef patties. I mean, come on, you'll do some things for that. 3 pieces of bread.
Lettuce, cheese on a sesame seed bun.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am Shawn Kerley here with the one and only Brian Stevens with the National Real Estate Post. Like I always say, if you do not get their daily content where Brian and Frank Array like to send out video blogs, maybe about 5 minutes long, go to your app store, download or search National Real Estate Post or NREP. Get their mobile app. You get these fun videos where Brian and Frank talk about what's going on this side of the fence and also on the realtor side as well, in layman's terms, where us folks like me can understand. So, Brian, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. We got through the heat wave out here. It was a brutal weekend. It was really hot, but we made it through. So we're doing good right now. Things have cooled down a little bit, and we're anticipating a really nice, mild week.
Well, good for you, and have fun in California, whatever. Anyway, I'm a huge believer in a ripple effect. So if you have a pond with no waves in it, and by no means am I calling or I'm trying to relate the real estate business and mortgage business to a calm pond. But if you throw a rock into this, there's always going to be waves. And President Biden comes out, tries to do a good thing by making Juneteenth a federally recognized holiday. But I know that this is an oversight. Nobody probably brought it to anybody's attention. But what are some of the horror stories that you've heard with closings getting pushed back? Because once this became law that this is a federally regulated holiday, we lost that in your 3-day rule. When you can disclose a loan estimate, now we can close on the 4th day, things like that. So what are the fun stories? And I mean, I'm being very facetious when I say fun. What are some of the stories you hear?
Here's the whole thing. Did we lose a day? We don't know. That's what makes this thing so, I don't know. From the cheap seats, it's kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, if you're not in it.
It just really shows a lack of foresight, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That we can literally pass this holiday, put it into motion, and then a couple of days later, we recognize it. Now, here's my thing. So I started getting wind of it this morning, and I know that it was happening on Friday. So I'm thinking to myself, is this going to be celebrated last Friday? Is it going to be celebrated today on Monday? Is it celebrated over the weekend? Do we have a rescission day in the middle of it? And then we hear from groups like the FDIC and we hear from groups like the CFPB, and they're saying, just do what you think is probably the right thing. Like nobody has any clarity on this. So what are the problems? I would like to think because it's the middle of the month that maybe it's not as bad as it could be if it were the end of the month, but people are still dealing with massive pipelines. And here's the thing. If you are locking your loans to close on or about your closing date and you blow through those, you could blow locks. Just depending on where you locked it at, that could mean higher costs for your consumers. It could mean pushing back closings. It could mean delaying closings. It could mean our rescissions on our HELOCs. What is are we going to be recognizing Saturday or are we not going to be doing it? So it created a bunch of, really what it comes down to is unnecessary problems. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Let me tell you, here's the one that I hope every lender doesn't understand. But I remember a time years ago when I was closing a deal for a family, and this was back in the old actual subprime days, and we were writing a loan that was truly substandard, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's always inherent risk in that. But, our lender, man, we were good to go. And like the day before the closing, they came back and found something on the file. I forget what it was. And they said, oh, we can't do this deal. And they blew this thing up. Well, what happened was they were anticipating moving. So now they have to get a hotel. They sold their house. So now they're just completely displaced. They had all of their family coming up to celebrate this big moving party thing. And all of that stuff gets wiped out. So the ripple effect of these type of decisions that are made without really foresight in terms of how it's going to affect different industries can be very, very significant and very real, not only financially, but emotionally to people. I mean, if you've been doing real estate long enough, you understand what it's like to miss a closing date. And those are not good days. And I think what's maddening for lenders and real estate agents who are also suffering as a result of this right now, if you did experience any delays or problems as a result of Juneteenth, is that you could have moved yourself in 24 hours from a great referral source who thinks the world of you and who would continue referring you business for years and decades to come to somebody who hates your guts.
Yep.
I mean, that's how big these emotional shifts can be. And it was, it's all unintentional. But like so many things in housing and lending that we've seen for decades now, is what are the unintended consequences of not thinking some of these things through? And this would be a perfect example of it. Again, if we want to have something positive about it, it happened in the middle of the month. Most of our stuff is going to stack up near the end of the month, I would hope. But yeah, when you have a big pipeline right now and you have a fine run origination business, a fine-tuned origination business, yeah, this can and it has caused some problems. So
Yeah.
what do they say? The road to hell paved with good intentions. And I think that's kind of what this was. Which, by the way, I'm in flux on this. Is it celebrated Friday? Is it celebrated today, or is it celebrated over the weekend?
We'll have to see what happens next year. But here's the thing: is that he comes out and makes this, a holiday. Awesome. If the CFPB would have just came out and said, "Hey, with this." Not a knee-jerk reaction of making this a holiday, but with the timeline on it happening on a Friday and you have deals or whatever, go ahead and close like you were yesterday. And we will basically give you, not come after you because of this date not meeting the 3-day, the 3-day rule. If they would have came out and gave clear instructions, because we all know that the CFPB is they're just adding more venom to their bite right now, right? So they're going to come after people just to hammer some huge levy fines just because, like, hey, we got a shot in the butt with our testosterone, so now we're going to levy the hammer on your ass. If they would have just came out and said, you're good to go, don't let this screw up what's going on, because just think about those multiple domino effect deals. I'm selling a house on Monday to purchase, and I'm using the proceeds to sell. Those people that I'm buying from are doing the same damn thing. Well, now you have 6 different families that got displaced because of, this is a holiday now, and we have to abide by these rules. Now, a lot of banks, including ours, we said we're pushing the closings because we don't know what the CFPB is going to come levy at the end of the day. They say, just do what you think is right. How many times have we heard that from the CFPB say, use your interpretation and we'll let you know if it's wrong or not with $1 million fine. So
not very reassuring, is it?
No, not at all.
And here's the FDIC's official position. Their official position is whether it will affect the rescission period for loans closed earlier this week before the signing of the law is uncertain. That is their verbatim, word for word official position. It doesn't really instill faith or confidence. And lenders, and when you think about this industry, I mean, lenders over the past decade, we've so been that abused dog that's head shy whenever the master raises its hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So lenders are going to always err on the side of whatever's going to be the most conservative approach, because the reprisals for doing things that are deemed the wrong way can be so expensive they could bury your mortgage company. So we've got this built-in safety net, this gear where we default to the safest alternative. So when we don't have clarity, most all lenders are going to say, well, hold on a second here, then we can't go forward because it's not fair to the rest of our team. And there's a real sound logic in there. And this comes from over a decade of getting lack of clarity on different rules and regs that have been passed that have changed every aspect and component of the mortgage market.
Yeah. Well, we'll just hear the stories as they come in. Moving forward, HUD comes out and says on FHA loans, student loans are going to be looked at a little bit differently. So if we were going to take somebody's application and say they had $40,000 worth of student loans that are in forbearance, because hardly anybody's paying student loans right now, a lot of people just want them to go away. But if there was a $40,000 balance and a 0 monthly payment, we would have to put in 1% of that outstanding balance and say, hey, this payment's going to kick in at some point. At some point in time, you can no longer kick the can. You're going to have to actually pay your debt back. So use 1% of that, $400. $400 to an FHA borrower is a ton of money on the monthly as far as hurting their affordability. Now they've come back and said, well, we're going to cut that in half now. Let's go to $200. 0.5% of the outstanding balance is what we're going to have to use. Hip, hip, hooray for folks, going FHA. Now they have more affordability in this really non-affordable time frame, especially for the first-time home buyers. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on this? Because I remember when FHA, if you could prove that they didn't have payments for 12 months, you counted zero. Then they came out with the exact opposite, saying 1%, 1%, 1%. Now they're like, okay, let's turn off let's loosen it up a little bit and just go a half point.
I find it really interesting how the groups in this country who can least afford pushing the boundaries of their qualifying abilities are the ones that we push the most. Mm-hmm. And this is something we've seen quite a bit, actually. When you make $40,000 a year, and your housing expense consumes 50% of your income or 45% of your income, your residual income, what's left over, and keep in mind, for like those who don't understand this is a pre-tax amount. So you're getting that residual income post-tax, which is going to be roughly 50% of your income, maybe 60% of your income if we do things the right way. But out of that, you need to pay your electricity, you need to pay your water, you need to pay your garbage, you need to deal with deferred maintenance, which is the thing that really gets overlooked. Mm-hmm. It's when that new roof needs to get put on, when you get a crack in a pipe, all the different types of, the problem with houses are they're outside. And when things are outside, they tend to break down. This is also buying your food. This is sending your kids to school. This is getting them clothes. This is paying for your phone. This is paying for your car. That money doesn't go a long way when we have these fixed expenses. And what we find is oftentimes those who can least afford the higher payments get them. And that includes car payments, things like that, because you don't have as much money to put down. You're putting less down. You're getting a higher interest rate on your car. So all of this stuff starts to spiral for the low to moderate income family. And what we need to do is we need to find a way to protect these folks so when they get into a house, they have a fighting chance of actually making this work. If you're making $40,000 a year and you've got a normal car payment, normal bills and all that type of stuff, and for some reason your hot water heater goes out the same time you need to get a new set of tires on your car, chances are you're not going to be able to pay that. The average household right now in the United States has $26,000 in non-mortgage debt. That's as much as a lot of people make annually. And so now what we're going to do is let them push their debt to income ratios to put themselves in harm's way faster. Now, I've been looking at this stuff very closely for 15 years now. And I have seen the idea, the notion of helping underserved communities time and time again. And it always comes down to, for some inexplicable reason, allowing them to push their debt to income ratios. There's only a couple of things that you can do. You can lower the cost of what your outgoing money is, or you can raise the amount of money that they're bringing to the table. One of those two things. And since we as a mortgage industry don't have jurisdiction over what somebody makes or the decisions they make for the jobs that they have, the only thing that we can do that's responsible is to lower whatever these payments are going to be. So by allowing us to push debt to income ratios, I just see it in putting more folks in harm's way, because the only thing worse than not having home ownership, if that's something that you desire to have in life, is to have it forcibly taken away from you. Yeah. Because any future opportunity for home ownership is going to be that much harder. So, I like the idea of, lowering the expenses. I love the idea of affordable housing. I do. I'm a huge proponent of it. I'm a big fan of taking a lot of the permits and the costs associated. When the average cost of permits for building a house in the United States right now is pushing $40,000. I think we should find a way to get that $40,000 and lower that number so housing becomes much more affordable. I think we should start to do cookie cutter, entry level, 1,400 square foot, 3-2-2-1 type of houses. Mm-hmm. So when we do have low to moderate income folks, they do get that pride of home ownership. But when that monthly payment comes and we do have those deferred maintenance and other bills, that you're in a position to succeed. That's my thinking. So no, every time I hear that the solution from Washington is to allow people who can't afford to push the envelopes in terms of their qualifying, to push the envelopes even more, I just think instinctually, from a guttural level, it's the wrong way to approach this.
Well, and for folks that have been in this for a while, whenever we lost BC, FHA became our BC. I mean, if you really think about it, the most important thing that you said is going up the higher debt to income ratio on pre-tax dollars. So if you have using round numbers, if you have somebody that makes $1,000 a month, so $500 every 2 weeks, we can go up to 57% of the pre-tax dollars for qualification. We know they're not getting that. We know they're not getting $1,000 a month, but we're acting like they are. And another good point is, oh, things break on a house. You're going to need a new roof. AC is going to stop working if you're in a hot area. Things of that, there's going to be things that get broken or that need to be replaced or repaired or have maintenance done to it. And nobody really budgets for that, especially in this segment of the buying pool, which is unfortunate because they do get smacked in the mouth on what do I do? What do I pay? What do I fix first? Or, and that's when bad things happen.
And that's how neighborhoods fall apart, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden, well, I got to get the tires on my car because I got to go to work. So that takes a priority over my roof that's leaking. What happens to leaky roofs? They don't fix themselves, do they? And this is how we have neighborhoods kind of going in the wrong direction, is we're putting people in positions to lose.
Yeah. So let's talk about the other side of the coin, Fannie and Freddie. Yes. The stats for 2020, very absorbent as far as, the refinances that went through. But whenever you look at the people that were actually taking advantage, it was your 700 plus credit scores, 40% or 43% loan to value. So basically it was your creme de creme that they were basically taking advantage of all of these refinances last year. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, yeah, I mean, what we've learned is that their book of business that they wrote was as clean as it's ever been. You're looking at low loan to values, which is always great. Because we had so many overly qualified people, this consumed the pipelines of mortgage companies. If I can write 2 loans and I got somebody who's got a 50% LTV with a 28 back-in ratio and $100,000 in the bank, or somebody with a 680 credit score, no money in the bank type of thing, and I can only write one of these 2 loans, I'm going to write the clean loans. So the mortgage industry, by extension, fed Fannie and Freddie the cleanest of the cleanest loans we have ever written in the history of the GSEs. And keep in mind that, Fannie Mae has been around over 80 years. And we know that this is a problem because it leaves a lot of people on the outside looking in right now. So, for example, what we do know is in 2019, 16% of African Americans got their loans denied. In 2020, it was 18%. Hispanics saw the same type of thing, but it was 11% to 12 to 13%. Asian Americans, it went from 7% to 8%. And Caucasians was right around the same at 6%. But what we've actually seen over 2020, and we know this and we can substantiate this from all the HMDA data that was just put out, I think it was today from the CFPB, is that we took our strict underwriting guidelines and standards that are leaving more people on the outside looking in, not fulfilling the charter of the government-sponsored enterprises. We've taken that book of business and we've made it even more conservative. So once again, we are going in the wrong direction. We're healthy when we're lending to people who have 680 credit scores. We're a healthy industry when we can do that, when we're taking advantage of FHA, which, by the way, has been losing market share considerably to the GSEs over the past couple of years. So yeah, we do need to start going in the other direction right now. We need to start looking at people who maybe have had less than perfect credit profiles and find a way to offer home ownership to them. The problem that we're running up against, as all you real estate agents know too well right now, is it becomes very difficult to do that with our just remarkably low inventory in every major area across the country. Because you're listing these homes, well, you're going to do the same thing lenders are going to do. You're going to look at what they're putting down, what type of loan they're getting, how safe the deal is, and we're going to take the safest deals that we could possibly get. So we have to, from the ground up, the way to fix all of these problems is not offering more lenient underwriting standards and guidelines for underserved communities. It's not rewriting the charters of the GSEs. What it is it's creating more affordable housing so that these other type of loans that are on the table for truly entry-level borrowers can now start to be realized. I mean, think about this. I live in Vacaville, California. The median sales price for a house here is going to be right around $600,000.
Wow.
Okay? Now, this isn't a fancy town. We are an agriculturally based town in California. Okay, we're between Sacramento and San Francisco, and I see more turkey and deer than I see people coming to work every day. So we're very much a blue collar community. Well, who in the hell can afford a $600,000 entry level home? Like cops can't do it, teachers can't do it, firefighters can't do it. You know, the people who service our communities. How many communities are like this around the country? And the problem that we're seeing is the answer is just too many. So the GSEs, yes, we've got to correct what they're doing, but I think by extension, by proxy, we need to do it by trying to find a way to get more affordable housing.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, because in one of your videos that you put out on the National Real Estate Post, you talked about the food chain, and your first time home buyer or your entry level is the krill. You get rid of the krill, then the little fish don't eat, the big fish are going to eat. So you need those entry level houses for people to actually be able to afford, because that's where your up buyers come and things of that nature. So
That's how you start the food chain, right? I mean, it really honestly is. And when we take the entry level buyer out of the equation, we've broken the food chain of real estate. We really honestly, and we're doing this right now. And I get it. We know the price of wood. We know the price of permits. We know the the labor shortages that we have. We know that people are moving out of the major metro areas. They're going out to the burbs. It's further straining the inventory that we don't have. Not to mention our housing starts have been off significantly over the past decade. Like, we understand all this stuff, but there has to be a point when we start mobilizing and just building more houses, because I really think that's not just the first, but it's a second and third way to correct a lot of the problems that we have with housing.
yeah, and then unfortunately, it's not like a 30-day fix. It takes a little bit to build a house, especially if you're doing it on a mass scale. One, trying to find labor and then material. And that's another talking point, is that, the price of wood, and we joked about this last month, that if you wanted to take your spouse or your significant other out to a fancy, expensive dinner, you take her to Home Depot or Lowe's in the lumber aisle.
Yeah.
But we've seen, hopefully we're over the curve on the material costs for what these builders are having to endure. Crystal ball moment. When do you think that, or if we will ever get back to where we were, just say 24 months ago?
Well, do you realize that we actually have more trees planted in North America than we had in the 1920s when we were clear cutting?
Mm-hmm.
Before we started clear cutting, we have an enormous amount of wood in North America. Enormous. For every tree that we cut, we're planting two.
Yeah.
We have sustainable solutions to our forestry issues in this country. Outside of here in the West, where we just burn everything down every year, which, by the way, it's on again.
Another fire. Wow.
Oh yeah, we got two. There's one down in Central California, and there's one up here by Shasta. But anyways, we do have our logging industry has been very proactive and very responsible. So we do have lots of timber. So the reason for the high cost is a little something of an anomaly to me. It doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. I guess the cost of labor is significant. Some of the tariffs, because we get most of our softwood, our poplar, we get it primarily from Canada. So there could be some tariffs that are involved in there. But the president of the mortgage, or the National Association of New Home Builders, came out and said, yeah, we're going to start to see wood prices go down again, but they're not going to get to where they were before. Because another thing that we have to take into consideration here is, if we do have tariffs, or if we do get our cost of labor under control and we do start bringing in more wood, we still have inflation to deal with. We're importing this wood, and your dollar is not spending as far today as it would have a couple of months ago. There is a cost and consequence for printing up trillions of dollars and just giving it to people. I mean, there just is. Here in California, I just heard the governor, who's rerunning right now, who's saying, hey, everyone else is getting another $1,400. I gave money for this. We gave money for that. You already got $3,000. I'm like, how many thousands can we give in unearned money before printing that money starts to have an effect on inflation? Yeah. And we are starting to see it right now. So I don't think it's going to get as low as it was before, but it certainly is going to come down off its highs. I told you I was building something in my backyard, and I got a piece of that OSB wood. That thing was like $90. I'm not kidding you. That was like $25 a few months ago. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So certainly we're going to come off our highs, but it's going to be an issue for this next year.
Yeah, and that's just the cheap glued together stuff, right? It's not like you're fancy.
Right.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the Fed. You said inflation. They did come out last week and kind of put the bond market into a stir, as far as recognizing that the inflation is here and that it's going to be a little bit higher than what they initially anticipated a couple months ago. But and a lot of folks do know that the Fed or the Treasury, they're buying mortgage-backed securities. They're buying treasuries they're artificial. If it wasn't for them, rates would be so much higher because just the market for people to buy mortgage-backed securities is not there. So the government, and I forget how much it was per day, or averaging something stupid like 3 billion a day. Correct me if I'm wrong. An astronomical amount of money. So United States government is the biggest investor in the mortgage business with all these securities. They're coming out and now saying that the Fed's going to throttle down the quantitative easing. And in 2023, you reported that that they're going to start raising interest rates, short-term rates that banks borrow from the Fed. Correct?
Yeah, if you look at the Fed's balance sheet like a decade ago, they didn't carry any debt. Like now they're just buying everything. It's remarkable the billions and billions of dollars that the Fed is consuming buying debt, all types of debt, bond debt, mortgage-backed security debt. I mean, to the tune of billions of dollars nonstop. And yes, this is what we've done to truly keep interest rates lower than where they otherwise would be. People always talk about the short-term rate with the Feds. They're going to raise it in a couple of years, is what they're saying right now. But every time the Fed does something with their short-term rates, the mortgage industry has like everything factored in months beforehand. In fact, when you assume that rates are going to go up, they tend to go down because we overcompensated for it. So it's a real graduated scale in terms of how it affects the mortgage market. And it doesn't have that big of an effect. But what I was looking at from, I think it was the St. Louis Fed board, is they were showing their 30-year fixed rate loan, the 10-year T-bill, and the short-term rates over the next 5 years. And they have them all going up. I believe they have the 30-year fixed going from 3 to 5. I think we're sitting around 3 now. They see that in the next couple of years going up to 5. The T-bill going up from 2 to 4, and the short-term going from at or near 0 to 1 to 1.5%. What we want to really get across to everybody in the industry, real estate agents and lenders alike, is that they're all seeing the trends of all types of borrowing money is going to go up. Like there's one direction this is going to go over the next few years. So the rate you get today is going to be better than the rate you get tomorrow. And the rate you get tomorrow is going to be better than the rate you get the next day. There's still, I think it was like 40% of people who have mortgages in this country still have an interest rate north of 4%. Like the numbers really, it's still astounding how many people have not taken it. It's astounding how many people have not got their vaccine and have not got their refinances. If there's two things that you should know from 2021 is get your vaccine and get your refinance. By the way, over here, I don't know if you know this, just get in the weeds here for a second, but now at McDonald's, I heard this on the news today. If you go get a vaccine, they'll give you a free something on their menu. What does that say about our society? That like you wouldn't get a vaccine yesterday, but because there's a Big Mac now involved in it, you'll get the vaccine.
I'll get the
What
shot
does that
now.
say about us?
Yeah.
What does that say?
We love our Big Macs.
I digress. It's like, God damn, but that is a $2 Big Mac, man. All right, give me that shot or whatever the hell's in that thing.
It's got 2 beef patties. I mean, come on, you'll do some things for that. 3 pieces of bread.
Lettuce, cheese on a sesame seed bun. So anyways, what I think lenders and realtors should know is that there's still a huge number of people who could and would benefit from getting a refinance. Just understand the direction of all types of all these indexes. They're all going up and they're all going in one direction, and everybody is pretty much in alignment with that. Now, we just spoke a moment ago about inflation. Gas for me has gone from $4.10 to $4.75 a gallon. Okay, that's what I've seen over the past month. Milk is more expensive. Bread is more expensive. Everything is more expensive. So for lenders and real estate agents, when you message your clients who have higher interest rates, like you are the inflation busters. Like look at yourself as a loan officer, as you are helping your past client database and people who live in your community, you're helping them beat inflation, which is the higher cost for the goods and services that you buy. Now, when people can consume more, okay, that means that your economy, especially on a local level, is going to do better. So lenders view yourself not only as just a way to personally enrich yourself, but you are the inflation busters for your community. You are the grease on the ball bearings here, guys, to keep your community lubed up and doing absolutely fantastic. So write those loans. Don't just do it for yourself, but do it for your community, because when people have more disposable income, what we know about Americans is we are consumers. We will spend it.
Mm-hmm. Got 20 bucks in my pocket. It's burning. Let's go blow it. Well, and lastly, I mean, we're halfway through the year. I mean, just like that, we're already, the 21st of June. We all speculated that 2021 would be a good year. It's going to be, rates are going to be a little bit higher than they were in 2020. They had to be, but they're still smoking hot. And you say 4%. I remember when a rate dropped down to 4.8, I called everybody saying you're stealing.
Yep.
refinance right now, and here we're talking about, low threes or whatever. You're feeling, we do see that applications are slowing down. People are getting burnt out from getting punched in the mouth on these bidding wars with houses, so I don't know, what are you feeling that Q3 and Q4 are going to bring in this year as far as on the mortgage side?
Well, for all you younger people, we said we're already halfway through the year. As you get older, you'll learn that the days and weeks, they go slower, but the months and years fly by. Yeah. That's what really happens. I mean, that's the truth. This is a game of inventory. Okay, so what's good for bad is, what's bad for one person could be good for another. We've talked about this before. A lot of these loans that are in forbearance and a lot of loans that are 30, 60, 90 days late, they're going to have to be addressed, and people are going to have to bring these current. They're going to have to get modifications. They're going to have to short sell these homes, or they're going to have to get the homes foreclosed on. There will be inventory on the way for the second half of 2020. Further, we're also seeing a lot of this in the rental market right now. I know that especially on the West Coast, a lot of our more liberal states, there is like investment property fatigue, where a lot of folks are selling off their investment homes. 50% of all people who own an investment property, they own one. So when we think of like these huge conglomerates who go out and buy all these swaths of houses all over the place, 1 out of every 2 rental properties is owned by a person who's got one other mortgage besides that rental. And these are people who require that rent payment in order to make the mortgage payment back in the house that you're living in. With a lot of the laws that we passed, post-COVID, that have, just given a moratorium to folks on their rent payments as well, this has come as a huge stress to people who own those homes. And so we're starting to see a lot of folks who have that one investment property thinking, you know what, it's better for me to get rid of this right now, especially when you start to hear some of the laws that are being passed right now. We are bantering about right now, for people who haven't made their payment for the better part of 2 years, we're bantering about right now passing a federal law that says if you have a foreclosure on the horizons, that you have a right to free legal representation. That's just what we need. Let's throw more lawyers in this thing. And when you have landlords who are hearing this, they're thinking, wow, it's time to get rid of some of these homes.
Yeah.
From a real estate agent's perspective, what I would do is I would look at non-owner occupied properties in my area, and I would start running those down. I really would. I'd want to find out what the disposition of the landlord is to see where their headspace is. But we're going to have that, as we talked about before. There's going to be more traditional sales with folks who haven't made their payments. And there's going to be short sales. We're going to be dusting those things off again. So you guys ready for a 9-month escrow like we had before? It's on the way.
Well, my man, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. I
Likewise.
appreciate it. And here's to the next half of this 2021 year. And, everything always works out. I'm a firm believer that everything will work out. So we'll see what happens.
It is, man. Perception's reality. It is. We create our own realities oftentimes. So let's just go out there unencumbered by yesterday's nonsense and wake up enthused for what today has to offer. I think that's a pretty good way to go about it.
Well, enjoy your beautiful California weather.
It was 111 on Saturday. 111.
It is a little hot. All right, man. Well, we will talk next month.
Sounds good, man. You guys have a great one. It's nice to hear and see all you guys.
Bye-bye.
All right, later.